All right, y'all. Welcome into the Rockets Collective. I am here with LaShard Binkley from the SI.com and Rockets Fuel podcast, as well as Will from the Brado and Will Show. Brad is not with us today, but he'll be on next time. I am Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610 and the B Block podcast, doing this actually from the Sports Radio 610 headquarters. I'm a little bit out of my element. I've never really actually done something in this room. They're doing renovations. So I hope all of this works out. But it's a hell of a time to be able to sit here and talk NBA. We've had some news and some notes since the last time we talked. We are right here in the midst of the draft, second round of the NBA draft, starting within the next several minutes or so, or within the hour or so. So I want to react to a lot of what we've seen. And I think the big headline that we have not been able to address on this show, and the Rockets have been tangentially related to this story over the last couple of years, and we finally get to put a bow on it. But Giannis, as y'all all know, is now with the Miami Heat. They make a massive blockbuster deal, trade a host of players, including Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Haskins, and a bunch of first-round picks, three first-round picks, including one of the picks that you saw yesterday, the 13th overall pick, to bring in Giannis from Miami to Milwaukee with the picks, and Giannis from Milwaukee to Miami. Want to get y'all's reaction to this, both the trade itself and whatever domino effects you feel like it might have had on the Rockets. We can start with you, LaShard.
As far as the trade, if you Miami, you have to do it because you weren't going to be better than Detroit or New York or probably even Cleveland. So you had to do it, and you were going to give up some players to do it. At the end of the day, it all really comes down to, is Giannis going to be able to, play out the rest of his career without having any more major injuries? Because again, he probably could have played last year if they had anything to play for. But at the same time, he's had several lower body injuries lately. So that definitely can factor into it. Also, have to factor in how long is he going to continue to play. He might be fine just going back, to his home country and retiring sooner than most people think. So you have to kind of factor all those things in. For Milwaukee, they had to do something because they were going to lose him for nothing. Getting Tyler Hero, it's a pretty good consolation prize. I think Ware, to me, is kind of be the kind of biggest player from this entire trade as far as when it comes to the Bucks, as a player that is going to really kind of take off now. Now that he's, may probably get more playing time with the Milwaukee Bucks. So I think for both teams, it's a fine trade, but I just don't see that this really makes Miami all of a sudden one of the top teams over New York or Detroit in this next season. But again, at the end of the day, if you're Miami, you had nothing else really going on. They were kind of stuck in that play-in 10th, 11th, 12th spot anyway. So you have to kind of go ahead and make that trade. When it comes to the Rockets, I don't think the Rockets were ever really – they may have considered about – they were never really going to trade for Giannis. It was going to be too much. They weren't willing to give up those draft picks that they would have to give up to get Giannis. And also just too many question marks, because if you bring in Giannis, you kind of run into the same issues you've been having. Yeah, you bring in Giannis, you probably trade away Şengün, but you still have nobody around him that can shoot. So you're going to kind of run into the same issues he's ran into in Milwaukee since they won that championship. So it just really wasn't worth it. When they did the Kevin Durant trade, they didn't have to give up a lot. Yes, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, we understand that. But at the end of the day, they didn't have to gut their team to do it. I feel like they would have to gut their team to be able to get Giannis just to make the contracts match, unless you're trading Kevin Durant, which they wasn't going to do. So at the end of the day, the Rockets really probably was never in the running to begin with. But if you're Miami and Milwaukee, I think it's a win-win for both teams.
Yeah, Will, we saw that the finalists were Boston and Miami. So at the very least, we know that the Rockets weren't top two and might not even been top three. What do you think about the trade, man?
Yeah, I imagine we really weren't too much in the running, similar to the reasons why LaShard. But yeah, the trade itself, I think that number one, I think that the Bucks should have traded Giannis a year ago. I think that what they got in return for him was probably the proper value for a player who, number one, told Milwaukee that he was only going to re-sign with probably two or three teams. We know Miami and Boston were on that short list of teams he would re-sign with. So you already had a limited field of teams who could make offers for Giannis, because Giannis pretty much handpicked the team he went to. But then he's also a year older, a bit. I won't say he's injury prone just yet, but there are some injury concerns there for Giannis. and he's expiring. This is his last year under contract. So the value of that guy, even though he still is one of the better players in the league, I think he has an argument on any night to be the best player. I think he probably, medians out somewhere like the 3 to 5 best player in the league range. So even though he's still that good, I think for those other reasons I illustrated, he's not quite the asset he would have been if you would have traded him a year ago when he did have another year under his contract. He obviously was a year younger. The injury concerns may not have been as concerning as they are now. So you probably would have been able to extract a lot more value from him had you moved him a year earlier. And honestly, like we all knew this time last year that the Bucks needed to trade him. Like nothing changed from this time 365 days ago and then today that it should give the Bucks any reason to believe they should have kept him. Like he should have been gone last year. So given the context that is that they did not trade him last season and they could trade him now. I mean, I think they got about as much as they could got from the Miami Heat. They took Tyler Hero, they took Hillel Ware, they took Jaime Jaquez, they took what's my man named Casperus, who just was I want to say pick 20 just last year.
Yep.
They got a lot of players who not necessarily have star upside, but I think each of those guys they got will be rotation pieces on a team that can compete. And I mean, to be fair, there's you can do a lot worse than getting rotation pieces. And nothing else, I think Khalil Ware does have a little bit of upside, and Tyler Hero is a guy who was kind of in that low tier All Star range. Even though I would maybe even consider flipping him again, which reports are they're probably entertain doing so, but. Yeah, so I think that's fine. And they got 3 picks and a pick swap, so about 4 draft picks on top of the player haul they got. One of which they used last night in that draft. I think this one of these. I think it was Kareem Lopez is who they drafted. No, that was
No,
the
No,
Grizzlies.
Braden Berries.
Yes, that was the Grizzlies who got Kareem. So
Yeah, Braden Berries from Arizona is who they ended up getting.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think in terms of returns, they got pretty fine. And then the Heat, I mean, obviously you finally pick a direction. I think that was my biggest question mark with them was they've been kind of treading water trying to trade for a star for the last like 3 seasons and haven't been successful in doing so. And it was kind of like you are crossing that threshold. Not even cross. I think they did cross the threshold where it's like it's time to pick a direction. Are you trying to compete? If you're trying to compete, throw everything you got to go out there and get a player like Giannis. Or if you're not trying to compete, go ahead and start gauging the market on Bam and on Hero and on maybe you may not even move Andrew Wiggins in his contract, but like see what you can do with that. Like just start hitting kind of that reset button. And the Heat was like, okay, we're gonna pick a direction. They just went ahead and just gave everything they possibly could to get Giannis. And while I don't necessarily think this makes them the favorite, or I wouldn't even say they're the second favorite right now, obviously a lot can change when free agency starts and when we get to playoff time next year. But I do think they are 100% a better team. And this Heat team has proven time and time again that they can go on deep playoff runs with inferior talent relative to what you would expect. And that was when they didn't have a player as good as Giannis. So now you do have a guy who legitimately can be the best player in the league. And like I said, they found ways to go on deep playoff runs, with second round guys and G League guys. They've done that. So I think they are a good break away from doing it. But would I have them as the favorite, like I said, the second favorites? I'm not sure I like them over Boston, New York. I think Detroit's gonna be aggressive and go out there and get some guys this summer. So I think I might have Detroit above them, and that's just in the East. Obviously, we come out West, San Antonio and OKC are juggernauts. So it's like I said, I'm not saying that they should have did. They definitely should have, but you would kind of assume if Giannis got traded, it would be to like a team that became like title favorites overnight, and I don't quite think it's that.
Can I just say, but before I give my thoughts on it, can I just say to this commenter about who cares, talk about the Rockets? Can I say that you cannot intelligently talk about any team if you don't have a good sense for what's going on around the league? So I just want to point that out. Like
I think what you just said there, B. Scott, is part of why I think a lot of fans feel the way they do because they don't judge our team, coaching, front office on an NBA scale. Because I'm gonna be like, we can kind of look in the comments. People have been saying Ime and Stone suck. That's true. I mean, you can say they suck, but then go compare them to some of them other GMs and other coaches in the
Right.
NBA. It could be tremendously worse.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so my reaction to this trade real quick is like, I thought it was actually a win-win for both sides, or at least I like what both sides got back. Obviously, I like Miami better with Giannis. Both of you have pointed this out. They were treading water, really headed nowhere, kind of in this malaise as a play-in team. Can be frisky because it's a really good organization, but nobody was really confusing them to be a contender as presently made before this Giannis trade. So now they, I think, have at least entered the chat. I agree that they're not anybody's. I don't think that they're anybody's favorite or anything like that. But they have now at least entered the chat and can say that they're among the group of teams that will be competitive in the Eastern Conference, which is more than they could say before they made the Giannis trade. So to me, it's a kind of a no-brainer for them to do that. And then Milwaukee side, y'all put this out as well. They got a handful of really decent rotation players. Like I don't think there's a lot of dead weight in what they got back in the trade on top of the first round picks now, other than the pick that they got this year. Those other two picks are in the 2030s, and I can't even think that far ahead. They basically got eighth graders back. But but I mean that's cool. There's your future right there. So I like it for both teams. I really like what the Bucks ended up doing last night with that pick and the Braden Berries. I think he and Khalil Ware are both players. I know Berries has not played in the NBA yet, but those are both players that I'm intrigued by that Milwaukee now has that they didn't have before, of course. So I like the move for both teams. This is what stood out about it when it comes to the Rockets to me. And look, for my man NYK, compare our role players against the rest of the teams in the NBA. Man, stop this. This isn't serious. This is what I thought about for the Rockets in this trade. Not only were they not really in the mix, but Lashard was saying it earlier, they would have had to gut the team to make this deal happen.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until this deal actually happened that the Heat didn't necessarily have to do that. Like they sent away a lot of players, but they were able to keep their best player in Bam and at least another serviceable player in Wiggins, and they might bring back Norman Powell. So I feel like they did less of a gutting than what the Rockets would have had to do. Like they would have had to give up way more of their really good players than what I feel like the Miami ultimately ended up giving up, which is kind of me saying that Miami low key had a deeper team, and I don't think I gave them enough credit for that before this trade. Also kept Larson as Wing Kong is mentioned in here. So like they were able to give up good players and keep good players and get Giannis. So I think all along they were probably a better candidate, aside from the fact that Giannis was going to effectively pick his destination. It looks like they were a better candidate to give them both draft capital and players that they could use. I probably underestimated them in that way. So, and that's what happens when you get caught up in your own echo chamber and just thinking about what you got in your city. So I'm like, oh, the Rockets got all these assets, these young players, these draft picks. Oh, well, you know what? Other teams have some players and draft assets as well. So,
and
so
just real quick, sorry to interrupt you. That's the kind of thing I always like to let people know. They always say, well, why don't the Rockets make this trade? Why don't the Rockets make this trade? For one thing, it takes two teams. And another thing, it takes a player one to come to your team. And other teams have assets as well. The Rockets ain't the only team with draft picks. They ain't the only team to have young players. It's not just simple as NBA 2K and you can force a trade. It's just not that simple. I mean, I know it'd be great if the Rockets could go out there and trade for this player or trade for that player, but it's just not that easy in the NBA. And we see that constantly. The reason why Miami will able to do that, because guess what? Giannis wanted to go there. That's why they couldn't force Miami to give up Andrew Wiggins or give up this player or give up that player because Giannis wanted to go there. So that made it a lot easier for him to do that trade. So it was just like with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant wanted to come to Houston. That's why the Rockets didn't have to simply gut the rest of their team to be able to get Kevin Durant and give up a bunch of draft picks. So it's a lot of factors kind of go into it. It's not just as simple as, hey, why aren't the Rockets making this trade and this trade? Now, I will say, as far as they should have been more aggressive last year, I do agree with some people when it comes to that. But overall, it's just not easy, especially trading for a star player in today's NBA with the way the collective bargaining agreement is now. It's just a lot harder to make any type of deals happen these days.
So the Giannis trade, him going to Miami also meant again the finalists supposedly for Giannis were the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics, right? So him not going to the Celtics meant that Jaylen Brown was still at least a Celtic and possibly still available and on the market. We've talked about Jaylen Brown on this show before, but I think just for the sake of it, since this is kind of a development, they didn't go for each other, so he is still, in theory, in play for anybody that wants to trade him. Was this is that a good development or not? That Jaylen Brown is still out there and available, and how do you think the Rockets? How do you think they factor into the overall Jaylen Brown landscape or availability, if you will? Start with you, LaShort.
I mean, it's always good if you have players available, especially players as good as Jaylen Brown. And of course, there's a whole Udoka connection from his time when he was coaching the Boston Celtics. But again, it kind of comes down to what are you willing to give up? Because again, Jaylen Brown's making a lot of money the rest of his contract, so you're going to have to always factor that in when you're making any of these type of trades. Is Rockets don't have a lot of guys that are making, besides Durant and Alperen Şengün, possibly Ahmed coming up here pretty soon. They don't have anybody else making over $30 million. So then you have to factor that in when you're trying to make these trades. Yeah, you have Dorian Finney-Smiths of the world, but I don't think that's really moving anything. Hey, I want you to add Dorian Finney-Smith into this trade. I know he has expiring contract in sense coming up. But just overall, you kind of got to factor in all those things because, Boston's not just going to give them up for nothing. So you're definitely going to have to come off of, Alperen Şengün and a couple of other players and also 2 or 3 draft picks, even though you may not think Jaylen Brown is worth it, but that's what Boston's going to want to do because they don't necessarily have to trade Jaylen Brown. He's still under contract. So, yeah, again, there's a connection with him and MA, and, that may help the Rocks a little bit. But again, you have to it's a lot of other teams as well that have a lot of assets and a lot of players they can move as well. So at the end of the day, they at least will be in the running. I think they'll probably be in the running more for Jaylen Brown than they were for Giannis.
What do you think, Will?
So, number one, I would put a very large sum of money down that the Rockets are not going to be a finalist for Jaylen Brown. I don't think that's what's going to happen here at all. I think that the fans who were crossing their fingers and going to sleep every night, checking their phone, seeing if Shams is going to tweet Jaylen Brown to the Rockets, I think you're going to be very disappointed because I do not think that it's even remotely going to happen. So yeah, not to, I'm gonna go ahead and burst anybody's bubble who was hoping that that's what was going to happen here. I feel very confident in telling you that it probably will not happen. That being said, I also think that at least I, as a fan, I am not a huge fan of the Jaylen Brown idea. Even if the Rockets were interested, I would be against such an idea because I think that the Celtics are in contention mode, right? So they're not trading him just to get rid of him. They're trading him because they want to keep winning. And you have to pay them, not just in terms of assets, but in terms of matching Jaylen Brown's massive contract. And my whole thing with that, and it's kind of how I felt the entire time, is if I was going to make a move for a guy of for a win now star, because that's what Jaylen Brown is. He's a star. I think I would want to trade assets and value because, mind you, we're talking about assets. It would be like Şengün's contract. Like I think Şengün and his contract is for sure going in this deal, and I feel like you want to feel people aren't the highest on Şengün right now, which is fair. I'm not going to try to convince you that you shouldn't be after what we saw in the playoffs this year. But that's what it starts there from a contract standpoint. It starts there plus picks, and if I'm about to offer up all of that, gang, I'd rather just go ahead and I would have wanted to get Giannis at that point. Like that's kind of how I always felt about it. Is if you were going to tell me I have to trade Şengün plus picks, well, if I'm gonna trade that, I want to go trade for a guy who is arguably the best player in the league. I think both of them would be bad ideas. But if we're going to do a bad idea, at least get the bad idea that's the best player in the league. I think Jaylen Brown, for as good as he is, I can very confidently name you 15 players in the league right now that are better than him, and I could probably name you 20. Um, and so if I'm about to give up all of that for a player who I think is maybe in that 20-ish, maybe low 15, 20-ish range, I don't know. I don't think that makes much sense for this team that is not necessarily right at that doorstep. I think that as because as fans, we want to have the massive trade notification hit our phone and oh my God, we got this guy and that guy and that guy like it's 2K. But I truly think that if your goal next season is for the Rockets to be the best team they can be, which I want to make clear. There is a real argument to be made that the Rockets should not do that, that they should stand pat and accept that this team is not there. Take a strategic step back. There's an argument for that. I'm not saying I agree with it, but there is an argument to be made that you should take a strategic step back. But if your goal is, no, we want to win, I actually think it's smarter to use those assets to get complementary pieces for the team. We have the worst bench in the league. That's not an opinion, that is a fact. We have the worst second unit in the entire league. If our starters did not do it in the postseason, it did not happen. And if you simply like, for as flawed as people think Amen and Shingun are, they generate an insane amount of open looks. Half of that is because they're good at generating open looks. The other half of it is because teams don't guard our guys. If you give them guys who actually can play finish, right? A lot of times we're three made threes away from winning a basketball game. And so I think that if I was going to be aggressive with my assets this summer, I'm not looking for a Jaylen Brown. I'm looking for a Trey Murphy. I'm looking for an AJ Green. I'm looking for what's another guy who's kind of just like in that high 3-point rate mode on like the guard or wings. I'm looking for a Ryan Rollins from Milwaukee. I'm looking for guys like that who like come in. Honestly, no cap. Ryan Rollins and AJ Green solve so many problems for this team. Like if we could get guys like that on this team, ball handlers and high volume shooters, that solves so much. Like that would be what I would be looking for instead of going out there and saying, "Hey, let's just star chase the star chase." Because you like I said, you trade everything for a star, and you're still left with the worst bench in the league. You're still left with guys who can't dribble and can't shoot. I think it makes more sense to go out there and actually get guys who can do those things that complement the guys we do have. Yeah, I like Max Strus. That's a great name. I would like Max Strus because Max Strus does go out there and put up threes and make them on volume, stuff like that. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. I think that trading for a Jaylen Brown is not smart. Now, like I said, I guess this is on the itinerary, but like Anthony Edwards, for example, now that is somebody I would break the bank for because he is genuinely that good right now. He is a top 10 player in the league. And he's what, 25, 26 years old?
Yeah.
So you trade for him now, you still got him for the rest. He's not even in his prime yet. So you would have him for the next decade conceivably. So yeah, I would break the bank for a guy like that. But for a guy like Jaylen Brown, who for as good as he is, like I said, I don't think he's a top 15 player in the league. And I think he's 30. Is he 30, 31? How old is Jaylen Brown?
29. He'll be 30 this year.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be 30.
Yeah, he's 29.
this
You're
season.
correct. He'll be 30 when the season starts. So yeah, a 30-year-old player, when the season starts, who, for as good as he is, I bet you he has another 5 years left playing high quality basketball. For the same length as Anthony Edwards, I don't think that makes that much sense for this team.
Yeah, and just real quick, I agree. I just don't see the Rockets don't have enough good players to just go and try to trade for a superstar and then hope the other players step up. They're just not that good enough players around the players they already have in KD and Şengün. So to me, yeah, the best thing to do is to try to improve the team that you already have. New York kind of proved, yeah, they have Jalen Brunson, who's a star player. Cat is a star player, but around them, they have people like Mikal Bridges. I know OG is a really good player, but he's not like a superstar player. They just did a really good job of building that team. That's exactly what the Rockets are going to do because they're not going to be able to just trade for a superstar player. And guess what? They're going to be in the NBA Finals next season. They just have to be smart. This is where Stone comes in. This is a year that Stone really has to really show what he could do because they're going to have to make moves around the edges to be able to kind of stand out this year. I don't see one really big trade that they're going to be able to do in the offseason.
Yeah, and so this is why I'm uncomfortable with all of it. Because the Rockets feel like a tweener franchise to me from this standpoint. Because everything that y'all are saying is true about the depth of the team. Like we don't even have to argue about this. No bench, embarrassing level of depth. Everything y'all saying is true. But also, what is a little bit uncomfortable, put KD to the side for a second, is that like the young players, the star, it doesn't really feel like they've got a lot of star potential on this team outside of KD. Like who's going to be that top guy? Forget a number two, but that top guy once KD is no longer there or once that KD timeline is over with. I feel like there was a time where we thought there was at least one guy, perhaps more guys like that on the team. And so they don't really seem to have either one of the two things. Once KD is gone, there's not a clear young player who's going to be that guy. And also, while KD is here, there doesn't seem to be enough depth and talent around him to maximize his presence on the team. And so, from that standpoint, to me, there's just really no perfect direction to go in, because I think you're good kind of like in the middle. Like, you got some really good complementary pieces, but I feel like I think you're going to need a franchise player post KD, and it'd be great to kind of pair him with KD during that transition phase. But you also have these depth issues that are very real that y'all talk about, whereas all problems are not just going to be solved whether you just put Jaylen Brown or Anthony Edwards or whoever is your favorite superstar that you want, Giannis, whoever it is that you like on the team. You still got to build the team around them. Now, y'all know me, I kind of go a little bit different. Like, I'd rather get the stars and then start, or the best possible, forget stars, but the best possible players, and then start figuring out how I'm going to build the team around them, because I think it matters to have the most talent, and then you can figure out fit. But they're in a situation now where they got a bunch of ancillary pieces, and they've made the KD trade. Now they just need to add some depth. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg type of thing. I think you can kind of go either way. I don't know. Like, I don't know how much of the future are the Rockets giving up if they were to make a trade for one of these guys, other than, let's say, like the amount of money. Like, my biggest Jaylen Brown hang up is not what you'd have to give up in assets, is what you'd have to pay a guy like Jaylen Brown, right? Like, he's
going
to
talk about his contract.
He's going to eventually be making something like $70 million. And I think I might like him a little bit better than you do, Will, but I think we can come together on $70 million a year for Jaylen Brown in a couple of years. Feels like a bridge too far.
In 2029, when he will be 32 years old, he's making approximately 36% of your cap. Yes.
Yeah.
65 million.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm probably good on that, even though I think they could justify it, because the Rockets could use a guy like at least what Jaylen Brown was this past year, even if we don't fully necessarily believe that that's what he is. So I'm curious to see how they play it. We got any draft? We wanted to do an abbreviated show, and here we are already 28 minutes into the thing. Let's pay some bills before we talk about the draft. Y'all cool with that? I want to tell y'all about SeatGeek real quick. Pay these bills. SeatGeek, best place to best ticketing app, best place to get tickets to sporting events and live concerts and the like. I am so excited for summer. I'm so excited for the fall. After that, you got concert season coming up. You got football season coming up. And you talk about a way to get out of the house. You're looking for something to do, maybe even a gift idea. I've actually been looking for the best deals that I could find on concert tickets, which is why I want to introduce you to SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, including sporting events, also festivals. All right. So SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So what I would do is look out for the green dots, because green means good, red means bad. These are amazing deals, so you want to get in on them. And of course, I've got a code for you guys. You can use the code Collective10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code Collective10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. All right, so shout out to SeatGeek. Let's get in some draft thoughts. I know there's a lot of different directions that the Rockets could go in. I think we do agree that the best thing for them to do is add along the margins, and whatever they do is to get more shooting. Like, that's their biggest problem. Is the boys just can't shoot, So however they get that, I actually would be good with it. But what did y'all think about day one of the draft and kind of looking forward to the next half hour or so? We're gonna see what the Rockets do with pick 39 and pick 53. Is it off the top of my head?
It's 53.
53.
Yeah. How y'all feeling about what y'all saw? How y'all feeling about what y'all saw yesterday and what y'all thinking about the Rockets today?
I mean, for me, at least talking about day one, I mean, the top kind of top of the draft wasn't really that big of a surprise. You know, the
All
order that
chalk.
they went in, yeah, it was pretty much chalk. So wasn't really a huge surprise when it comes to that. As far as the winners, when it comes to who kind of won, unfortunately, it was the teams the Rockets are chasing, like Oklahoma City and San Antonio. Somehow both still had two first round picks, even though they were the two best teams in the Western Conference. And the guy that kind of really stood out for me when it comes to picks is Terrace Reed. He was kind of the guy that I kind of want the Rockets. Hopefully, maybe he could fall to the second round, but unfortunately, San Antonio got him. I guess San Antonio figured that they weren't going to go in another year with Luke Cornett as their backup center, so they got better. And then you got Oklahoma City; they were able to get better as well. They got another big man. They got what's his name
from Michigan.
from Michigan. I'm going blank right now.
My
But
what's the boy's name?
Ade Mara,
Ade
yeah,
Mara,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mara,
yeah.
Mara,
So
Mara.
they got him from Michigan, and now they got even better because I guess they didn't really want to have to just depend on Chet Holmgren, and I don't know if Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be back next year, especially after the draft that they just had. So they've gotten better. So unfortunately for the Rockets, those were the kind of the two big winners of that first round with Oklahoma City and San Antonio. They both got even more depth that they can add to their team. So as far as day one concerned, that's kind of what stood out to me. When it comes to the Rockets, like Will kind of mentioned, I don't think they're going to keep that 53rd pick either. They're going to package it with that 39th pick and try to hopefully move up. I would want them to move up because I think it's teams ahead of them that are willing to kind of just trade out of this draft altogether as far as the second round is concerned. I would want them to move up because it's several like prospects that are still available that did not get drafted in the first round. I know one guy that played for Cincinnati last year that played against the Cougars a lot this past season. And Baba Miller is one of the guys that kind of intriguing, even though I know you kind of just spoke about the Rockets need shooting, but I think they also need athleticism in the front court. He's kind of a guy that had a kind of a growth spurt. He went from 6'2" to 6'9". So he already has like a lot of guard skills. Since he grew to 6'9", 6'10", he kind of moved kind of to that front court. So he's kind of a guy that's intriguing to me. Of course, Emmanuel Sharp, he's another guy. Even though he doesn't really have anything outside of being able to a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's kind of somebody else that maybe you kind of stick on your bench or develop in the G League. He kind of stand out when it comes to that. I don't think anybody that get in the second round, somebody because we know how NBA is as far as just playing young guys, period. But definitely a second rounder. I don't see anybody that's
It's
really
not
just going to come
happening.
in. Yeah, they're not going to really get any playing time anytime soon. But at least it's some guys that you kind of stash in the G League. You have probably one of the best G League organization, the Rio Grande Valley Vipers in the entire NBA. Kind of that pipeline from the Vipers to the Rockets. They have a really good training program. So this is more about stashing a player, and you never know what can happen later on in the season. I mean, you always have injuries. You always have things like that can happen. So I think that's more of what you want to look for kind of going forward. Jaden Bradley is another guy that kind of stands out to me. He played for Arizona last season. He's a 4-year senior. He's a pretty good playmaker, 6'2", 6'3". So it's several guys that are there that Isaiah Evans out of Duke, to me, he was like the second best player behind Cameron Boozer. He's another guy, but a lot of these guys might also be gone before the Rockets draft at 39. So that's why I really want the Rockets to, for once, be aggressive. You got the 2 second-round picks. You got other second-round picks in later on in future years. I just think the Rockets should be aggressive, at least try to move up. And you never know what you get in the second round. I know most of the time you're not going to get a star-level player or even a starter in the second round. But when you don't have a lot of cap space, you can't really do anything in the free agency except if it's some type of mid-level exception or veteran minimum. So to me, you got to be aggressive in the second round. Then take a swing. It's a low risk, high reward type of thing. And I think that's what the Rockets really need to focus on because it really makes no point to draft 39 and 53. To me, package both those picks and try to move up.
Will, do you think they can find some of that depth in that shooting in this second round?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at OKC and AJ Mitchell was a second round pick. I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head right now of like notable players who contributed on winning teams as of recently who came
I
to
mean,
not obviously like the stars, like Nikola Jokic was a second round pick, but like that's the
it
outlier of all
the
outliers.
the
Like
the, the Finals MVP, of course,
Jalen Brunson,
was
yeah.
also a second
Yeah,
round pick. Yeah,
duh.
yeah.
Like I don't even know why.
The
Duh.
obvious
Yeah,
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like the you can obviously find talent in the second round. Um, and so yeah, I think you can go out there and address some of the needs. And I think the name of the game right now for like the better teams, I'm looking at like the OKCs and the San Antonio's of the world, honestly, is having good players on cost control contracts. And that's what a second round pick would be. If you hit on one, it would be a player who's making next to nothing compared to, his peers, but he's producing. Like AJ Mitchell was probably on the best contract in basketball. Just be honest. Like he probably like I don't like Presti should be arrested for how he negotiated that deal because it's ridiculously good for how good AJ Mitchell is. And so I think we can find a player there. Now, the sad reality is the hit rate on second round picks is extremely low, like really, really low. It's the reason why they're so easy to acquire and why they don't mean as much in the trade negotiations because the reality is if you get a second round pick, those first like, pick 31, pick 32, those are usually like extension of the first round. But after that, it starts becoming like these picks really aren't worth that much. So there is a real world where the Rockets pick at 39 and just don't get anybody who ends up becoming anything. And I don't think it would be an indictment on anybody. It's just the nature of the second round, which is also why, like, pick 53, I do not want to pick there. I would hope that we, like Lashard said, package that pick to either move up or at this point move out. But yeah, I don't think you're gonna find nobody. I mean, you can, but you probably won't go find nobody 53 anyways. At 39, I'm not a draft expert. I won't pretend to tell you that I've done the homework on the 39th best player in this class. I know the lottery guys that much. So I don't know anybody who I can like stamp and say, yeah, this is the guy who I want. I know everybody wants Emmanuel Sharp from UH. Isaiah Evans from Duke is a name that's got floated out there a lot. There's another guy I'm drawing a blank on right now. This was the guy I'm thinking of, but Baba Miller, so you talked about Lashard, and
Yeah.
I'm not as I don't want a project player with pick 39 just because I feel like we don't have the facilities for a project player right now. I think we kind of need more NBA ready impact guys. Even though I agree with you, I don't think who we draft here plays at all next season, anyways. I think whoever we draft is on the quickest trip to the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. Like he's
Yeah.
not playing. But Tyler Nickel, that's the guy. Yes, that's the guy who I was thinking of. Um, if because I think he shoots like something crazy from three. But yeah, if the idea is you kind of draft a guy, stash him in the G League for a season, and then you kind of bring him back maybe in year two, year three ish. Yeah, I'd imagine Baba Miller is gonna take a little bit longer to do that, and he's also like probably not gonna be a shooter, and I think that's kind of the thing this team needs. I'm kind of good unless he becomes Giannis, unless he becomes just the outlier development story of all outlier development stories. I kind of would just rather use that pick on someone that looks like they could be a good shooter and a good impact player sooner than later, as opposed to taking on a project player like Baba Miller, who I think is the definition of high risk, high reward. Like I think he's either really good or really bad, no in between. Um, so yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I am excited though. I think we can get a good player here. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna as soon as the pick is announced, I'm gonna do like 30 minutes of homework on whoever it is. So I'm excited for it.
And just real quick, we just got to kind of put in perspective the second round. The Rockets haven't had a second round player that they drafted actually play any type of minutes for them since Isaiah Hartenstein back in 2017. And really, actually, two players they drafted in 2015 in Sam Decker and Montrezl Harrell. Dylan Brooks didn't play any minutes for him. Pele Larson last year didn't play any minutes for him. DeAnthony Melton that they drafted didn't play any minutes for him. So a lot of these guys that a lot of times you get drafted in the second round never even plays a minute for your team. So that's kind of something else you got to keep in mind, especially with a team that just won 52 games last season.
Hey, look, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. History aside about the second round, just when I look at the players available in the second round, and I know, Will, you said you're not a draft expert. I'm not gonna pretend to be one either, but I did watch quite a bit of college basketball. And I do know some of these names. I wouldn't say that I'm overwhelmed. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not looking around and saying, hey, I just gotta have that player. And then on top of that, I agree with what y'all are saying about whoever it is probably not gonna play anyway. And I'm much more interested right now in this phase of the Rockets life cycle and players that can immediately impact the team, right? Like projects or draft picks, you can sell me on that if it's like a high end prospect. But in the second round, what I would love for them to find is a player that could actually play for them, right? Like I would love for them to find a shooter that could be in the rotation. Like, is there a player in the second round that you might have felt better about in the rotation when they were out there running around with Jay Tate and Aaron Holiday and everybody like that? Like, no disrespect to those guys, but is there a second round player available that would have fit and made more sense in their playoff rotation than those guys? And I'm hoping that there is. I don't know that there is, but I'm hoping there is. I think Emmanuel Sharp is interesting. He falls into that tweener status of doesn't have a perfect position, but shoots threes and will commit on defense and is strong and sturdy enough to not get too bullied on defense, despite the fact that he's undersized. And then straight up Rockets news comes in here right on time with Ryan Conwell. That's somebody that I've seen mocked to the Rockets at least quite a bit with that 39th overall pick. He is a lefty, somebody who has had a history in college of shooting the ball really well, was a 40% three-point shooter at Xavier 2 years ago, and I think Indiana State the year before that. Dipped a little bit with Louisville, but if you watch him in the tournament, that's somebody that, like, I'm telling you, that's somebody that can create his own shot and has the confidence of somebody that can stretch the floor. So he's somebody that I would be interested in. But then I come back to y'all's earlier point about, man, is these guys going to even play? Are they going to even have the confidence of the coaching staff? Should they?
Not in year one, probably. I would, unless like the guy just like lights up summer league and then kills training camp. I'd imagine no matter who we draft, they're like I said, they're probably going to go on the G League team. And like I don't think that is an indictment on that player or his evaluation. Like that's just the nature of second round picks. They're not. There's a reason why he's here day 2 and didn't go day 1. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I wouldn't expect a guy, whoever we draft today, should we stay here? Because like the funniest outcome that no one's discussed is that they just trade the pick and then we get nobody.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's the funniest outcome here.
Hey, that's why I'm glad we're talking about it now before they actually do that. At least give us something to talk about. Mess around and not have nobody, and this be a moot point. But again, the some of the guys we mentioned, Isaiah Evans, the Duke kid, Conwell, who I just mentioned, those are some guys that do intrigue me as like back in first round talents that are now going to be available in the second round. So you can interest me in that a little bit. I don't know how much they're going to contribute to the team, if at all. So
yeah, at least it'd be fun for summer league at least.
Hey, I guess we can't bet on there are no more or less to take on draft picks. So let me just tell y'all this. We're gonna cut this short and do an abbreviated version of this. Don't even worry about trying to find the screen. We're just gonna tell the people that Prize Picks is the best place to win money while you're watching sports. All you got to do is play $5 to get $50 instantly in lineups. You can use that promo code HMA. Prize Picks, it is the best place to win money while watching sports. If you're not already on that, make sure that y'all get on that. Again, all you got to do is play more or less on a few player stats and win yourself a little bit of money. Play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups, and use the promo code HMA on Prize Picks. All right, I'm trying to see. We wanted to kind of get in and get out on this one. I'm seeing plenty of comments. It's been a little bit of a spammy comment section today, man. Y'all get y'all life right, chat.
Man. People mad.
What's good, chat? Come on, man.
A lot of Stone and KD fans in there. See.
Yeah. Look, as if we haven't talked enough about them cats already, man. Do people think that we're like Stone apologists or something like that? Are we gaining that reputation? KD apologist even?
On the payroll, they pay us every week, you know?
That's right. That's right. I forgot.
My life stay on.
Hey, look, if I'm on the payroll, I need to renegotiate my contract. I tell you that's for damn sure. Because I'm making below the minimum. I'm making way. I ain't putting no dent in the luxury tax, not at all. So anyway, but that's our show. 45 minutes, probably 15 minutes more than what we expected to give y'all But that's LaShard Binkley from SI.com and the Rockets Fuel podcast. That's Will from the Brado and Will Show. Brad in his absence, also from the Brado and Will Show. He'll be back with us next time. I am Brandon Scott from the B Block with B Scott on YouTube and Sports Radio 610. Y'all make sure that y'all are subscribed to the Rockets Collective on YouTube and wherever it is you get your podcasts. Also, Rockets HMA on Twitter. Y'all can leave us comments on there. We're putting clips out on there. If y'all got questions or topic ideas, or anything that y'all want us to hit on the show, we do this at least once a week, sometimes twice. So we appreciate all the support. Thank y'all for being here. And until next time, y'all be good.